When you're wandering up and down the supermarket aisles, it is time-consuming and often impossible to find healthy options that don't contain additives, inflammatory vegetable oils, loads of sugar and other processed ingredients. And that's why I'm excited to share that we are partnering with Part and Parcel, an online store where you can find all of your healthy pantry staples in one place. Head on over to partandparcel.com.au/Natural Super Kids and use the coupon code NSK for Natural Super Kids, $20, that's NSK $20 to get $20 off your first order. I personally love to stock up on healthy baking ingredients, spelt coconut and buckwheat flours, rapadura sugar and maple syrup. They have an amazing range of healthy sauces and condiments. Some of my favorites are the Sears Organic Basil Pesto and the Good Fat Mayo, both made with only olive oil, none of those inflammatory vegetable oils. I always stock up on cans of black beans and chickpeas, lentils, butter beans to add plant fibre to my family meals, and they have a great range of sustainable and healthy tinned fish options as well. I'm always adding crackers and wraps to my order. They stock mountain bread wraps, which I love, rice crackers, seed crackers, again, all without the additives and inflammatory vegetable oils. I love the tea and coffee range. The made loose leaf teas are delicious, as well as the Tulsi tea range. I particularly love the tummy tea after meals. You can find lots of gut health ingredients at Part and Parcel. They stock the Gevity broth pastes and the Nutra organic broth powders, which I always have on hand in my pantry. They also stock things like supplements, cod liver oil, collagen, and whole food powders such as Foraged for You. They have a great range of low-tox cleaning products as well. Some of my favourite brands are stocked at Part and Parcel, Koala Eco and Abode. And they also have personal care products, Weleda skincare, which I love, low-tox sunscreens, deodorants, and so much more. So head on over to partandparcel.com.au/Natural Super Kids and use the coupon code NSK $20 to get $20 off your first order. Orders must be over $99 to claim this $20 discount. I hope you love Part and Parcel just as much as I do. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello, Jessica Donovan here. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. It is lovely to have you here today. Today's conversation is an important one. It's quite heavy, it's quite deep and quite dark, but there is definitely some hope and some good news at the end of it. I am joined today by an amazing mum, Casey, and she is sharing her son's story with us, Ashton, who is now 12 years old. So Ashton and Casey are clients of Sarah's, who's our practicing Natural Super Kids naturopath, and Casey talks about some of the work that they've been doing with Sarah in this podcast episode. I do want to say that there are some quite, there's some references to self-harm and to some quite complex mental health challenges in this episode. So just want to give you the heads up about that. Just talking to Casey, it really reminds you how much some families are dealing with, and the list of the diagnoses that Ashton has is kind of mind-boggling, and everything that they're dealing with. But I think the good news from this story is that, the family has really bound together, and there's some just amazing moments through the story that Casey tells of, you know, how different members of the family have stepped in at different times. And it really just shows that, you know, even when things feel really helpless and hopeless, the support that you need, you know, is out there somewhere. And I hope that gives other families hope. And so as I said, this does end well, this story, and there is some really great insights that I think families will be able to sort of gather from this story. So I appreciate Casey coming on. I appreciate Ashton allowing us to share his story, and I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, Casey. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. It's so lovely to have you here.
So good to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about your story, Ashton's story. So tell us a little bit about Ashton. Let's go back to what life was like before you started getting answers. What were you sort of dealing with day to day?
Yeah, I'd say Ash growing up, he was very vibrant. He loved sport, loved his friends. He was super caring. And then I would say it was halfway through year 4, and he was about 9.5 when this happened, and everything just took a sudden turn. He wasn't paying attention. He was getting quite angry and aggressive. Where he used to excel, he's so bright and he was an excellent student. All of a sudden, he wasn't completing tasks. He would be so fixated on particular type of things, like he wanted to do a collage, so he would rush through something else and do a terrible job at it because he just wants to do some unrelated collage. And at the time, his teacher was very supportive, but we didn't quite know what it was. We just figured, you know, it's growing boys, this is what happens. Then it continued to escalate, and he was getting angrier and angrier, and he became violent at home, particularly towards myself and his brother. So he's got a little brother and an even younger sister, where he was focused on the brother. He would talk about things almost like he was talking in tongues, like it was complete rubbish. And like, I will be honest, at one point, my husband and I were like sniffing drink bottles, like, is there alcohol involved? Is there drugs? Like, I don't understand what's going on with him. And it was one day I was working from home and I was on a Teams meeting, and he was supposed to be at school, and a paddy wagon turned up and 3 police officers got out of the car with Ash.
Aww. It's okay. Take your time.
Long ago, I thought I was.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he'd been sitting in a park telling strangers he was from an abused household and he was too scared to come home. So the strangers had called the police, and the police had gone to pick him up and take him to the police station to interview him. And what the senior officer had said was, you know, he's an excellent storyteller. He's got a very vivid imagination, but there were gaps in the story. Have you ever had him tested for ADHD? And that was sort of the turning point of, no one had raised anything like that to us before, and that there could be some sort of issue, or that it's not just a normal thing. You know, he was my first child. I didn't know any different. So from there, we went down a whole range of paths trying to find one. And, you know, to put all the pieces together, it was very difficult. A lot of combination of things that were happening. And at that time, he was actually delirious, which was one of the situations that came out of it, that he'd grown and his facial plates had covered his nose, so he was incapable of sleeping, which I argued with the ENT at the time and said, I go past multiple times a night, I check on him, I check on all the kids, they're asleep, and he just said, "You're not listening to me. He's physically incapable of sleeping over 5 minutes. He's just like he's being tortured. He's literally talking tongues. He has no idea what he's doing, what he's thinking, what he's saying." Which started one journey, which turned into a lot of different journeys. But by that stage, Ashton was extremely aggressive. Like, it was walking on eggshells in the house. And I would relate it to like a light switch, flicking on, flicking off. Very quickly, he'd flick on. He'd be throwing stuff. He'd be screaming. Everyone would be scared of him. And his brother was amazing through all of this. He would see that something was, Ashton would talk about, he would go from his eyes and you could just see that he wasn't himself. His face was white. And Camden would go and set up like a little movie cinema in my bedroom for his little sister. And so she was unaware of what was going on, and have snacks and things, and they'd go watch a movie on the iPad and lock the door so they were safe. And I would deal with Ashton. And I hope that Ellie was too young to remember how bad things got, but it was, and these situations mostly happened when my husband was away at work, so he's FIFO. When Dave was home, there would be sort of, I wouldn't say Ashton would be calm, but he'd be less violent. But it was mainly when he was away that it got really, really tough.
Wow, that just sounds like it must have been so scary and so confusing. And as a mum, like, it must have been really hard to know where to turn. I mean, you did end up getting some answers. Ashton ended up with quite a few diagnoses. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. As good as I would get. Yeah.
So can you walk us through those and like how you started getting some answers as to what was going on for him?
Yeah. So at the same time, we'd started to see a pediatrician to get some answers through a proper diagnosis. We'd been seeing a counsellor through my husband's, or a psychologist through my husband's EAP, but I'd have to say it wasn't a great fit for Ashton. The most he got out of it was he learned how to play chess. Through the pediatrician, he was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, depression, intermittent explosive disorder, oppositional defiant disorder with pathological demand avoidance behavioural issues, bilateral serous otosis media with bilateral conducive hearing loss. And then through a separate channel, while we were working with the ENT to work out his breathing. So once it was found that he actually couldn't use his nose at all, he was rushed in for surgery like a few days later. And because he hadn't had the use of his airways in his nose for so long, when he was waking up from the anaesthetic, he actually thought his face was on fire. So they ran out to get me when he was in stage 1 recovery, and he was smashing his head against the metal bars of the hospital beds that they prop up, because he was trying to put the fire out. And they said, "We can't restrain him, but he's going to hurt himself. Can you please pop in and help him?" So I got on the little single bed and I was sort of bear hugging him from behind, and I was talking to him like, "It's okay, mate. It all went really well. Like, it's all fine." But from that, he got anaesthetic trauma through accidental awareness during general anaesthetic, which is a diagnosis I wasn't aware of. And he had such a belief that I tried to kill him while he was sleeping that it then opened up a whole other avenue of, all you could say was pure hatred for me. And there was nothing I could do, because he just believed, like the sun is shining bright, that what happened that day was I tried to kill him.
Real. Wow.
So it was a lot of different things working in a lot of different places. And, you know, that the diagnoses kept happening, and all you could think of was like, what have I done wrong that has caused any of this? And I remember talking to Ash and saying, "You know, mate, all I want for you is for you to be happy. Are you happy? Like, have you ever been happy?" And he was just yelling, saying, like, I wouldn't know what happy is. This is all I know how to be. And I was like, mate, it actually breaks my heart, because all I ever want is just for you to be happy. Like, we need to work through this. And at the same time, I would say I felt extremely isolated by like other parents at school, and because all they saw was Ashton was all of a sudden getting in a lot of trouble, and I was having issues with Ash when Dave was away, his dad, and you sort of felt like you were looked down on, whether it was actually happening or not. And I just went into my shell. I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone. And there was one day, it was actually Ash missed the first day of year 6 because he was taken away for a involuntary mental health order after he self-harmed for the first time. And it was also the first day of his little sister's first day of big school. So it was a big day. There were a lot of emotions. And I remember I came home and a friend had called me and said, yeah, how's your day? And I just burst out crying. She was calling because she wanted to see how I went with taking Ellie to school for the first time. But then she ended up getting angry because I hadn't told her how bad things got with Ashton. And I actually felt a lot worse because of that. And I felt I went even more into my shell, that I didn't want people to know. But I think what sort of gave me a bit of hope was around the same time one of my neighbours came over and they said, we saw the police and the ambulance at your house again. Like, I'm not here for any judgment. We've all gone through it. And they were older neighbours, and so their kids, they're about my age, and said, you know, we went through it then. If you ever need anything when Dave's here, like, you just come over, send Camden over to get us. Like, we will do what you need. We'll never judge you. Like, the time will pass. Like, it's just a very, very hard time. And it really stuck with me, the whole idea of it's a season. The season really sucks, but it's a season and it'll pass. It's just how to manage the best you can at the time. But the more the diagnoses came, the more overwhelming you felt of, like, where do I go from here? Like, there's so many things, and what leads into another. It was just a lot of learning to do.
And it just sounds so lonely. And I think the way the medical and mental health system's set up, you're getting bits and pieces of information and diagnoses, but there's not that kind of, holistic care. I think that's really missing from the medical model completely. And just that story of your neighbour, like, it just makes me think of how much of a difference, just having that non-judgmental support from someone can really make. But yeah, it just sounds absolutely horrendous and so lonely for you to know sort of where to turn. And I know you came at this from every direction, conventional medicine, there was some surgery, psychology, immunotherapy, which we haven't sort of touched on yet. But where did Natural Super Kids fit into all of that? Like, what made you take that action of making an appointment with our naturopath, Sarah?
It's a bit funny how it happened. Because while all this is going on, I was just feeling completely overwhelmed, like wanting to get all the support, but not wanting, like, all the hoo-ha. And everyone had, like, oh, try this, try that. And you just think, like, you wanted to help so badly, but I wanted him to respect what it was that we were doing. And I actually was at my hairdresser, who I see very rarely, and I've known her for such a long time. We both were living out in the same rural town in central Queensland. I really value her opinion, and she was someone that I felt comfortable to talk about what was going on with Ashton. And she said to me, you can take this as a grain of salt. You can completely ignore me if you want, but I used these online naturopaths when she had something with her daughter when she was younger, and she's like, I know it's not for everyone, but I know you, and I think that you would really be receptive to it. Like, why don't you give it a go? And at the time I thought, how much can someone help me with Ashton? when they're not going to ever physically see him or probably never actually even see him on Teams. But then I thought about what she said and, like, wouldn't I rather try than not try? Like, just cover it off. So it's like, you know, what can it hurt? I'll give it a go. I actually made the appointment, like, while I was sitting there. And when I looked up the profiles, I saw Sarah specialised in neurodiverse children. So I chose her, and I'm so grateful that I did. And the last appointment I had with her a couple of months ago, she actually read the notes from the first appointment. And, you know, it hurt my heart so much of the place that I was in and Ashton was in. And I had no idea where to go. I was really at the end of my tether of, like, I just wanted him to be happy. So, yeah, for where he was and where he is today is so polar opposite. So I'm really grateful for it.
It can be really powerful and also kind of, I don't know, like, it can be eye-opening, I guess, to reflect back on, you know, what was going on. And I think when you're in that, you're probably just I'm sure you're just in survival mode. So for that reflection to happen, yeah, that must be really powerful. And I know, like, Sarah is just such a beautiful practitioner, and I'm sure she was such a great support for you. And I know she did a really thorough review, as she does with all clients, into his medical history. Tell us about what she sort of found that other practitioners had missed.
It was ironic. Something had happened, I think, a couple of weeks before. Ashton had a serious incident at soccer and had been taken to the hospital, and I was telling her that, and she said, well, could you get all the scans that he had? We got recent blood tests, everything we could get, and what she found was that his body wasn't processing protein at all, and also his intestines were enlarged, and we couldn't work out. At that point we knew it, but we didn't know why it was doing it. So we started going through a range of things, and she looked at his blood work and found the things that his body was deficient in, and also around he was having trouble sleeping, and at the same time, through a different line, we were also trying to teach him how to breathe through his nose, because this is maybe a year post-surgery and he still couldn't use it. He just didn't know how. So we're using a nose physio on one side, and then we're trying to work out how to get him tired on another side, that he was still waking up and he was still very aggressive when he woke up. And Sarah would talk through, you know, unless there's an actual event that happens, there should be no reason that someone wakes up angry. So we were looking then at supplements to try and help him, like, get into that rest and digest system, and things that really helped with what he needed. It was very particular for that, and it was a lot of supplements he takes. If you see it, we brought him one of those, you know, I always associate it with the 70-year-old people that have the morning and night tablets. And we explained, I sat down and went through what everyone was, and he was really great about it. He understood that he also wanted to be happy, so he'd always take it. You'd have to prompt him to take it, but he'd never kick up a stink about it. And it wasn't until we did the microbiome test that it came out that his gut and his liver were creating a toxic gas that was stopping his body from processing food altogether. And I remember asking him around when the test results came back, I'm like, mate, how often do you go to the bathroom a week? And he's like, oh, I think once, at least once. And his dad was standing there. He's like, mate, anyone would be flying off the handle if they only went to the toilet once a week. Like, what is that? And so from as soon as those results came in, we straight out changed his probiotic and changed the way some of the stuff he was eating in his diet. So trying to get more cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage into what he was doing. We're now at a stage where that's all going very well, and he's doing so well. But to try and ease back from some of the supplements, we're trying to do fermented food, which is not being so successful.
Mm-hmm.
And he's told me adamantly he would rather take supplements until the day he dies than keep drinking the kefir water that I'm making for him. But he's giving it a red hot crack. He can see the benefits that has happened over the time that we've been seeing Sarah and the changes that he's made. And even, you know, the things we mix in the water for him to take his tablets in the morning to just, I think there's vitamin C powder and there's aguagum I think we're using at the moment to try and like get it to absorb into his body better. Like he understands all of it and he can process why we're doing it. So we've followed everything to a T to get us to where we are. But you know, he's sleeping, and there was one day he slept until 9 o'clock. I'm like, Dave, I had to go and check he was breathing because he's never slept that long ever. But he can actually sleep now. He's sleeping with his mouth closed, breathing through his nose. He's waking up and he's in a good mood. He's got energy. And it was around the dialogue we had with him of why are we doing all of this? And he really loves soccer. And we're like, you're getting on the field, ready to play a game like you've already played for before you. Like, you're exhausted. If you're a good player, even being that exhausted, like, think about how you'd be if you started. So, yeah, it's been a lot of things all at once. But while Sarah's never met him and he's never met Sarah, but he knows all about her and talks about her all the time. She probably doesn't know that. It's like just been such a difference having her in there because I didn't want all my eggs in one basket. I don't believe there's only one option of the way to help. And I think that, you know, actual prescription medication has its place, but, you know, I hope Ashton's not on it for the entirety of his life. We're working on until he gets through puberty and his mind's developed, that maybe we can ease back, but also supporting his body and getting him the education on the things you can do naturally just by changing your diet and your food and supporting your body to grow strong and like your mind to be cleared. That's what I want for him. And I think even though it's been some really terrible lessons he's had to learn very early on in his life, I know the way that we've led through this will also set him up down the track.
Yes. And I love what you're saying about empowering him, you know, not just like take this stuff, but he knows what everything's for and he can make that choice, you know. Do you want to drink the water kefir or do you want to take these probiotics? It sounds like he's made a clear choice there. But yeah, I think you're so right in terms of these healthier habits. And, you know, he obviously needed a lot of support in terms of supplements because there was so much going on with him. It sounded like he had a real combination of, you know, neurodivergent brain behavior stuff going on and mixed with the physical ENT stuff he had going on, just kind of, you know, combined to create all of the issues that he was having. So, you know, obviously the support he needs to balance all of that out and support him in all the individual ways that the supplements and the dietary changes is a lot. But I'm confident that, you know, that will be able to be sort of pulled back over time for sure. So you've already talked a bit about some of the improvements that you've noticed. Tell us a little bit more about how different, you know, the Ashton of today is compared to 2 or 3 years ago.
It's black to white, the way that he is. And there was a lot of things that happened along the way too. He learnt the friend group that he was in was not right for him. And he's with like such a great group of young men that are coming through, and they like hanging out with him because it's him, not because he's trying to be someone else. And so that's also played with it as well. Like he's more confident in himself. I remember the first day of year 7 and I was trying to work out how to juggle to get the little kids to primary school and him to high school. And a boy he knew from Nippers rode past and he was like, "Hey, Ash, do you want to ride with me?" And he's like, "Okay, Mum, I'm going to go." And I was like, "But but I just want to get the first date photo. Can you stop for a second? Where before he never would have gone. Like, he would have been so self-conscious about doing that. He understands how to deal with his emotions, and we've got an excellent psychologist that we found in the end for him. That's a perfect fit.
Great.
But when he gets overwhelmed, he'll put his headphones on and he'll listen to music. We brought him a watch that he can just download a Spotify playlist to it. And so he'll go bike riding and he'll just calm himself down through music. I see him sitting before a soccer game and he'll have the headphones on. He found his way to calm himself. He knows, like any kid, he still has the dummy spits or whatever, but he'll come back 5 minutes later and he's like, I'm really sorry, I was tired, or I'm sorry, Mum, I had to go to the toilet. And I was like, yeah, right, good one, bud. But he has that insight where he knows he stepped over the line, or he can know that he's going to, and he steps himself away, goes and gives his dog a cuddle, and then he comes back again, and then he's like, this is what I want to do and this is why. We still have some issues with the transition to high school because they missed the diagnosis being transferred in his high school enrolment from the primary school, which we've had to work through. And part of it is he just feels like he's captured in his own body if he's stuck at a chair for too long. And then from that, he feels like he's being hard done by. But he's just thrived. And it's like we got through the storm of the really terrible season and we're out the other end. And then there's this other kid here left where we're just like, I don't even know who it was or the demon that had possessed him for the past few years, which is sometimes what it felt like. My husband would fly in and just say, like, he's not even there. His eyes are hollow. I don't know where he is. And he's usually like, he's such a caring kid and so empathetic. And to see him go through that for such a long period of time was so hard. But it's also, I think of that, there's a picture of the steps to change where everyone's so scared of that giant first step if you make the steps too hard. Or there's the other person who's got all the way to the top because they took tiny little steps over a period of time. And I felt like it wasn't me, it wasn't his dad, it wasn't him. We were doing it together and we were taking those little steps just to try and get. Now you look in retrospect, we've come such a massive way. But if you asked me a year, 2 years ago, could we ever get here? I was at peace knowing it was never going to happen. Like, that was who it was. So to believe that it can change around and it is temporary, like, that was the biggest thing for me to accept and to keep going forward when things were so bad.
Gosh, I can imagine. And, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to get you on and share your story, because I'm sure there's other parents out there that are, where you were a couple of years ago. And first of all, I just want to get to that analogy of like that big step. I really love that. And the fact that it's a whole family commitment, really, isn't it? And I just want to say that I think you've done an amazing job as a mum to get him to where he is. And it sounds like he's just really got the tools that he needs to be able to regulate and do what he needs to do to sort of stay balanced. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. And I want to ask, like, if there was a parent out there listening right now whose child is in that place that Ash was a few years ago, aggressive, struggling, nobody seems to have answers, parents are feeling really lost, what would you say to them?
I'd say there'd be two things. One is you're not as alone as you think you are. And I've found that since particularly even Ashton, and I'm only talking to you because I actually asked Ash if it was okay to tell his story, and he was upset that he couldn't be on here himself, but he was like, if it helps someone else, then I'm happy for you to do it. And he talks to his friends and he talks to like family friends that we know about the journey that he had. And so many other parents have come out and said, we thought we were the only ones, we didn't want to talk about it. It's not a shameful dirty secret that you need to have hidden, and the only way you're going to get through it is by having support of people that you trust and will be non-judgmental towards you, to know like you just need to survive for this period. It won't go on forever. And the other was just, you need to trust your instincts. If you think that the advice isn't right or you think it's not suitable to your child, trust yourself over what anyone else is telling you, because you always know better and you know what's right. Even if everyone's telling you you're wrong, you just stay the course and know that you always have the best interest in your kids at heart. And that's what you have to follow.
Yes, I love that advice. And whenever I'm talking to, families who have had big, challenges and struggles with their kids' health, I think every parent says a similar thing, because it's so common to get told, there's nothing too much to worry about here, or, to be handballed to another specialist, or, to really not get any answers. And I think that's so important to really, listen to your gut as a parent and keep sort of seeking answers, from wherever you can. And the other side of it is, and you brought this up earlier, I'm sure you were getting, you should try this, and my kid's got ADHD or ASD too, you should try this. So that can be, somewhat unhelpful as well. So it's really and it's so hard for parents to kind of navigate all of the advice and the information that's out there to get to the support that they need to. But I mean, you're a good example of why you should just, keep trying.
Yeah, it's so worth it in the end. Like, last time I talked to Sarah, we just got back. He made it into national surf lifesaving titles, and he dislocated his hip 3 weeks before and was told he was out of sport for 3 months. And he just looked at me in the hospital and said, "We're going to do it. Like, they will not stop me and I will get there." And he was so focused on everything he did. And I remember when he got out he was going for flags, and he ended up in some other competitions, but afterwards he came and he just held my hand and he whispered in my ear, "I told you I was going to make it." And it's just like, that's why you do it. You go through all the hard times because you want to see that happy kid that's so proud of himself at the end of it. It's what it's all about.
Totally. I love that story. And what a relief and what a blessing to have, a 12-year-old young man going into those teenage years in such a better place than he was a couple of years ago. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your story. And thank you to Ash too, for, allowing you to share his story. Definitely let him know that I'm sure, there's lots of families out there that will be listening to this, and this will help multiple other kids that have, similar challenges to him. So thank you so much, Casey.
Thanks so much, Jess.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week. Don't forget, you can get $20 off your first order with Part and Parcel, an online store where you can find all of your healthy pantry staples in one place. All you need to do is use the coupon code NSK for Natural Super Kids, $20, that's NSK, $20 to get $20 off your first order, as long as it's over $99. And as well as all of those healthy pantry staples that I mentioned at the start of this episode, they have a great range of snack foods, maybe for those weeks where you don't get around to baking whole food bars, healthy popcorn, jerky, and baking mixes with only healthy ingredients. Head on over to partandparcel.com.au/Natural Super Kids and use the coupon code NSK $20. I know you will love the convenience and all of the healthy options that Part and Parcel have to offer. We are thrilled to be collaborating with them.